Let's take a look at the field for the Grade 3 Peter Pan. This is the local prep at Belmont Park for the Belmont Stakes coming up in a few weeks. We'll find out if Justify is going for the Triple Crown or not. You had a field of 6 signed on for this year's Peter Pan. The favorite at post time, you had 3 horses that took a lot of money. You had Core Beliefs, who went off as the 2-to-1 favorite. You had High North, who went off as a slightly larger 2-to-1 shot. And then you had the 5-to-2 shot in Just Whistle coming out of a maiden score. That left a horse like Blended Citizen, who was technically on the outside looking in at the Kentucky Derby as the 21st entrant, off at odds of 9-2. And guess what? He's had a pretty good trip, and he kicked home like a freight train. Larry Colmus with the stretch run.
To their outside, trying to keep up, and they're into the stretch. And it's Core Beliefs. Core Beliefs and Tyler Bays have the lead at a furlong to go from the back of the pack. Blended Citizen is coming low. It is Core Beliefs. Blended Citizen closing down the center of the track. Core Beliefs trying to hold on. Blended Citizen's got him. Blended Citizen wins the Peter Pan.
Blended Citizen gets the job done, $11.40 on top as the 9-2 fourth choice in this year's Peter Pan. Core Beliefs runs a gallant second. We'll talk about that a little bit more as the 2-to-1 favorite. And then Just Whistle runs a non-threatening third at odds of 5-2 to round out your trifecta. Let's talk a little bit more about the winner, Blended Citizen. Blended Citizen is 3 of 10 lifetime, over $406,000 in career earnings, owned by Greg Hall and SayJ Racing LLC, trained by Doug O'Neill, bred by Ray Hansen in Kentucky, ridden to victory by Kyle Frey, and you can see the pedigree at the bottom of the page. He is by Proud Citizen out of a Langfear mare named Langara Lass. Now we talk a little bit about the race itself. Blended Citizen earns a 90 Beyer speed figure and a 122 time form US rating. Core Beliefs 88 Beyer, 122 time form US rating. When you look at the final eighth of a mile for each of these two runners, though, stark contrast. You had Blended Citizen come home in 12:76. You had Core Beliefs come home in 13:53. Now, some of that has to do with the dynamics of how the race was run, because you had a horse like Core Beliefs out there, broke a little bit on the slow side, pushed up early on. And although Timeform US doesn't have the fractions color-coded one way or the other, I happen to think this was a pretty legitimate pace signed on in here, because the opening quarter may have been on the slower side, 23-4, but they really ramped it up there in that second quarter. You look, they got 47 for the half mile. That means they went all of a sudden to 23-1 for the second quarter mile, and they were really throwing it down between this horse, Core Beliefs, Just Whistle. You even had High North, who was up in there breathing down their necks. And then that third quarter, they got out to 11-2. So I think the real racing picked up in the middle stages of this one, and the fact that Core Beliefs was able to put away Just Whistle, put away High North, and he kept going on and fought on. Okay, no match for Blended Citizen, but that was a good effort from Core Beliefs. Blended Citizen, on the other hand, the interesting thing about him, he finishes as well as he does, and he wasn't entirely outrun like he has been in some other races, which to me is a very, very important thing going forward, because I talk about it all the time when talking about a race like the Belmont Stakes. Mile and a half, the races are not won by deep closers. They're won by horses that have a little bit of tactical speed, don't get outrun, will stay all day, and have a little bit of finish at the end. If all of a sudden Blended Citizen has the ability to be that close to the pace and still come home with a nice finish, he galloped out very, very strong, all of a sudden Blended Citizen becomes a legitimate, interesting alternative to a horse like Justify or a Good Magic or a Vino Rosso or any of those horses that are bypassing the Preakness coming up this weekend and waiting for the Belmont Stakes. I think Blended Citizen ran a very good race, and I talked about it during his earlier 3-year-old campaign. I didn't like how he ran on dirt as a 2-year-old. I thought he was just a turf horse and synthetic horse. And then all of a sudden in the Bluegrass, he at least showed me anyway that dirt might not be out of the question for him. Then he comes back with a race like this. I think Blended Citizen is blossoming into a nice little 3-year-old here. He's going to need to improve from a speed figure standpoint, but that's not totally out of the question. And again, love that finish. Kyle Frey, nice ride here, sitting in, waiting, finally tips out, comes with that run. Core Beliefs, I've made mention, I think this was a better race than it might even look on paper. Wouldn't be surprised at all if all of a sudden we do go back and run in the Belmont Stakes, and he is forwardly placed, and perhaps Justify wants to sit off of him. I can't imagine that would be the case, but hypothetically, if this horse is out there and all of a sudden instead of a 47.5, you get a 48-3, it's a giant difference. You get 3/4 and 13 as opposed to 11-4, or 11-2, excuse me. Maybe that speed carries a little bit farther. I don't think this was a bad effort from Core Beliefs either. Just Whistle, I liked him coming into this. I like him coming out of it. I think this was a lot to throw at him in a short amount of time. First time against winners, going a different configuration, one turn now. closer to the pace. He was actually on it. He had never been doing that. He was usually coming from farther off of it. I think you threw a lot at him, and I think he ran just fine. I don't think it was a great race, but I don't think it was a disaster. A little bit more concerning for a horse like High North. High North, they added blinkers for the first time most recently in the Northern Spur. Bang, he cracks, gets a 91 buyer. All of a sudden looks like he is onward and upward. And then in a race like this, when the real running started, he had absolutely nothing. I don't know what you want to do with him going forward out of this. I personally think he's a little bit shorter as far as distance is concerned, maybe a flat mile, maybe even 7/8 of a mile. I wouldn't think out of the realm of possibilities that he comes back in a race like the Woody Stevens at 7/8, and I wouldn't think it's out of the realm of possibilities that they eventually do try these 1.125 races again down the road. Perhaps it is a race like the Haskell. But for the time being, I personally would like to see them turn him back a little bit, try to get him to a little bit of a better suited distance, because I think he's better than what we saw on Saturday. For one reason or another, didn't show it. 81 buyer, 118 time form U.S. rating for High North. Going to need to do better than that against the big boys if he's going to be considered a legitimate threat in this 3-year-old division. But I do think the top two, should they both enter the Belmont, we know the winner is Blended Citizen. Should Core Beliefs come back in the Belmont? I think they're both interesting for different reasons. But you really do need to keep an eye on Blended Citizen. If all of a sudden this running style is actually what he has, if he can sit a little bit closer to the pace, you think the distance isn't going to be a problem for him based on the way that he runs. Blended Citizen becomes an interesting alternative 3 weeks from now, or 4 weeks from the time this is being recorded, in a race like the Belmont Stakes. We'll find out. Going to need to improve from a speed figure standpoint, but distance doesn't look like it's a problem for Doug O'Neill. Blended Citizen, 90 buyer, 122 time form U.S. rating, winning the Peter Pan.